to Creative Interview. I'm Brian Baxter, and today we have Melissa Walter with us. She is a visual artist who explores astrophysical concepts in drawing and detailed geometric patterns, as well as sculptures using a variety of materials. Melissa, welcome.
Thanks, Brian.
So let's start by asking, when did art start for you? When did you start exploring your creative side?
I was definitely one of those people that started really young. I was thankfully really encouraged by my family with my creativity. My parents would send me during the summers to different types of creative camps for art, dance, and music during the summers, and then even classes at the community college when I was young. And that just kind of continued through high school. I went to an art school half the day in my junior and senior year, and then later into college getting a BFA.
Right, so you were kind of primed all the way through for that
Yeah,
art. That's great. So, and then your first job out of college, did you start with art?
Well, yeah, it was related. I, had a little bit of a pressure to not necessarily go into the starving artist mode that everybody talks about, and went more towards a graphic design field, which made sense for me because at the time and when I was in college, I gravitated towards the computer anyway. So my first jobs were, web design and graphic design. And then that led more into a career as a graphic designer and science illustrator. The fine art portion of my life was sort of on the back burner for quite a while after I graduated college.
Got you. And so you worked for NASA as an illustrator, right?
Yes.
How was that? Did you have a lot of creativity there? Were you challenged?
Yeah, definitely. I'm thankfully still doing work with them as a science illustrator. The creativity end is limited in some respects just because I'm trying to create images related to specific science concepts and for educational purposes. So it's not exactly me just choosing I want to do a supernova today, There's, more specifics in working with a team and more collaborative in that respect, at least.
Yeah, the scientists explain pretty well what they want. So I'm thinking that's where you got to be a little more creative,
Yeah, well, thankfully, most of my career had a middle person. My boss would kind of get the notes from the scientist and then translate them to what makes sense for the article that will be released. But I have worked directly with some scientists, and they're not as challenging as you would expect.
Okay, well, that's good. So you decided to take your art full time, and so how has that been? And how was that decision? Was that a hard one for you?
No, it definitely wasn't a hard one. I've been working for NASA for almost 20 years, and I knew it was time for a change, but I didn't know for a long time, for a couple years, exactly what that change would look like. But then my husband and I moved back to San Diego from living in Venice Beach, and that's when I started to really explore the fine art side of me again, and after a year of doing that, I realized, okay, this is it. This is what I want to be spending my time with. So I took a step back from Chandra, not fully, but mostly, and decided that I was going to jump in to this world again.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And so now you have, you're doing your own thing. How do you approach your creative process now? Because before you were getting, instruction, and now it's like, the world is your oyster. So.
I know, that's hard. Well, mostly I just make, I get into the studio almost every day, and I'm not really one to wait for inspiration to hit me, which means sometimes work is not ever going to see the light of day because it's terrible. But in that process, really beautiful things happen. And then I also wound up really coming back to the astronomy side of me, which I was surprised about when I left NASA, full time. I thought that was going to be a very separate part of my life. But then I realized it's a beautiful well to dip in when it comes to coming up with ideas.
Right.
So between just getting to work and then maybe looking up theories on the multiverse, I wind up coming up with new ideas to create.
Right. So you've shown a lot of places around San Diego. What was like a couple of your most favorite places? A couple, 2 or 3.
Well, the most recent place that I really was excited about was the Central Library in downtown San Diego. This is one of the pieces behind us that I got to show in that show. It was a group show loosely based on the ideas of space. And I created a new series that I hadn't done before. And it was multiple pieces that were with metal and string. And it's just a beautiful gallery. And it was, I got a lot of help installing it. And I was really excited about that one. And then, then there's also my residency at Bread and Salt, which was really changing for my career and for the direction my work was taking. And then I did a residency at 1805 Gallery as well. And I was able to do a really all-encompassing installation work in that space. God, I could just name every single one. They're all awesome.
Yeah, that's great. So that's a good segue. Why don't we talk about the piece that you brought?
So this is one of the pieces from a series called Orbital Debris. It's inspired by the fact that we have a lot of space junk, essentially, surrounding our outer atmosphere. And it's all stuff that we've put up there. It's just little bits and pieces of shuttles that are purposefully blown off of within the process of launching, and then satellites crashing. And eventually, if we keep putting stuff up there and we don't take the means to actually clean it up, we're going to be earthbound. We're not going to be able to leave our own planet, which is a pretty big deal. Yeah. And things like even a fleck of paint can be really disastrous for launches and really dangerous.
Yeah, because of the speed and the vehicles are traveling. And all
that. Well, a fleck of paint is moving at 17,000 miles per hour. And when shuttles have come back and they've had like a crack in a window after investigation, they realize, oh yeah, it's a piece of paint had crack this windshield. So imagine anything larger is really dangerous.
That's pretty scary.
Yeah. So yeah, but it was a really fun series. So a lot of people don't know about that. So it was a fun series to kind of create and then install, because a lot of pieces were hanging or off kilter, and creating, sort of shadow became a medium in and of itself with the work. Yeah.
That's cool. So you had a documentary made last year, Artist Odyssey, which is a great documentary. Did that change your outlook on yourself? Did that really? Did you look at that and go, "Oh, I'm doing the right thing"?
I don't know. Maybe it just made me think, oh, I sound weird. Mostly. It was really fun to kind of see the process of my work, and the process from that point to when they filmed. But it's really interesting now. It's been a year, and I feel like it feels very antique almost at this point, with where my work has gone. But I still think it's a really fun insight to like my process, my weird brain, and all that. And Pants, my dog's in it, and that's the best part, really.
Gotcha. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see it and how things change so quickly. I mean, it really hasn't been that long.
No.
But already you're looking back on a year and a half or whatever and going, wow. Yeah.
There's been a lot. Yeah, there's been a lot since then, for sure.
Great.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And then you had your residency, you had a couple, the one at Bread and Salt, 1805, and did that really challenge you creatively? Did that give you like specific challenges there?
Oh, yeah, big time. I mean, my residency at Bread and Salt really put me on display because it was a very public space. So a lot of artists and art appreciators were constantly coming through. So it pushed me to be better, I guess, is the most simplest way to put it, you know? And it also gave me the opportunity to learn from them. You know, I learned about new resources, new ideas. There are people, rather than being solitary in my space, there are people there to bounce off, like, what about this material? What about that material? You know, which I think for most people, most artists, that can be really challenging where, you know, artists can be quite introverted and because it's sort of, we're forced to be that way. But I have a little bit of both. So thankfully the extrovert in me was able to use that in a positive way than being stressed out. And then 1805,
that was a tiny space.
That was, you know, that was a challenge, the space itself. Thankfully, I had friends that helped me through that process. So I learned a lot more different skills that I didn't have prior. And that was also really public because it was on the street corner. There was no windows, so the door was basically open the entire time. And rather than the art community kind of flowing through, it was more like neighborhood community. That the building that the gallery is in was under construction at the time. So tons of construction workers. And that was cool because it helped me figure out ways to talk about installation and my own work in ways that connected to people that have no interest in art, that aren't necessarily, you know, going to museums or, you know, going to gallery openings. And, you know, and that's pretty challenging, you know, especially when you're somebody that's doing abstract work about science concepts. But, you know, I think it was very fulfilling in some ways.
Yeah, that's it, because it's right on the street there. So people are walking by going, oh, interesting. You're able to interact with people walking by.
And explaining what I do. I mean, some people got it, some people didn't. One guy told me I should sell cigarettes in the space. I was like, well, maybe for a performance in another time.
How it relates to, you know, astrophysics and all that?
I don't know. Carbon, you know, I don't know.
Okay. Why don't you let us know how we can search you on the internet, on the interwebs?
Okay.
Where can we find you?
I do have a website. It's melissawalterart.com. I am also on Instagram as _melissa.walter_. And I'm also on Facebook.
Excellent.
So yeah, you can find me on all the things. Not Snapchat. There's only so many.
Gotcha. So much time in the day, right?
Exactly.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And so that's it for today. Thank you for watching the creative interview. If you like what you see, please subscribe, and so we can bring you more videos. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.